Welcome back to the second episode of my top 10 lists for Marvel Champions. This one's going to be about the best solo aggression heroes. But it's not specifically the top 10 strongest heroes in solo aggression. Rather, it's the 10 heroes that I think pair well with solo aggression. And just like with the last one, and probably every single one of these lists I make, I'm not going to claim that this is the only set of 10 heroes that you could use for this list. There's a lot of heroes that work well in a lot of different aspects in this game. These are just 10 that I'm choosing that I'm recommending to you. Now let's talk about why I chose these heroes, starting with the problem with aggression, because solo aggression has a very significant problem that you have to get over. And I think this especially affects new players because it seems like, just from a new player's perspective, that if you pick the Hulk hero, that aggression would make sense to play with him, because Hulk is just essentially the identity of what aggression looks like. This big, tough guy that just hits people really hard. And unfortunately, that's not actually how it works, in my opinion. Outside of Rush, which again, this is not a Rush list, that's going to be a separate list that I do, talking about the best heroes for rushing. This is playing aggression, but not just rushing the villain. So it can still be high tempo, but you're not just hitting the villain only and ignoring everything else on the board like you tend to do with Rush. And Hulk is a great hero at Rush, but outside of Rush, you really don't want to be playing aggression with him, because if you're going to be sticking around with the villain, you have to find ways to thwart, and it's just not going to work for Hulk. Oftentimes, when choosing an aspect for a hero in solo, you can't just consider what the hero's strengths are. So Hulk's strengths are the same as what aggression's strengths are, but that doesn't quite work. You have to consider what your hero's weaknesses are, what your hero's strengths are, and what the strengths and weaknesses of your aspect are as well. So for choosing a hero for solo aggression without rushing, I think this is what makes a good candidate. So the weaknesses that your hero might have is that they might be lacking villain damage or minion control. Aggression excels at that, so that's the strength of aggression. And if your hero's weakness is the same as the strength of the aspect, that's going to indicate that it's a pretty good pairing. Another thing is the weakness of aggression is that it's not as good at thwarting as some of the other aspects. So from the strength side of your heroes, you're going to want heroes that are pretty good at thwarting if you're sticking around, because eventually you will have to thwart. And then another thing for this solo list specifically is that aggression is not a very good solo aspect for winning when you're not rushing. Leadership and justice tend to be very strong in solo, and aggression and protection tend to be weaker in solo. So another criteria is that I want the heroes on this list to be generally strong, but still fitting into this weakness that they are lacking damage and minion control, which is something that aggression wants. And I'm going to make a couple rules for this, because I ran into a few problems when making this. I've already made the top 10 versatile heroes for the aspects, and it turns out that the most versatile heroes in the list in the game tend to also be good in all of the aspects. And I don't want to just be reporting, yeah, these heroes are good in every single aspect. It's like X-23 won the last one. She's a great choice for aggression, but I don't want her to be on the top of every list, and I don't want all my lists to look the same. So this will give a little bit more variety. And then also, since I'm excluding the most versatile ones, these are going to be a little bit more unique choices. So you might find that some of the heroes on this list aren't what you were expecting, and maybe you learn something new or find a new character to play. So that's another benefit of this. And then another one, which is true for the last list as well, is that I'm excluding multi-aspect heroes. So heroes that can include a bunch of cards from other aspects, I'm not including because they kind of are just a different category to me. For instance, Adam Warlock can have cards from every single aspect, and he's a pretty versatile hero. And so he can fit into a lot of different slots and fits well with the identity of all the different aspects. But I don't want that on my list, if that makes sense. Spider-Woman is another one. She's fantastic for solo aggression, but she's also paired with another aspect. So maybe I'll make a video about that in the future, but for now, with these top 10 lists, I'm excluding multi-aspect heroes from my top 10 heroes for different aspects. Now that I've explained what I'm doing, let's jump into the list. So here is the first one. Number 10 is going to be the SPDR suit. SPDR, I think, works really well with aggression because of the host spider. The host spider lets SPDR ready. Is that buffing up your attack and then readying with the host spider is something that works really well with aggression. While I'm putting these heroes in order for the sake of the video and because it's fun, note that these are not necessarily in order. So I'm not going to say that SPDR suit is worse than the heroes that are above her for playing solo aggression. Now let's talk about number 9, which is Vision. And Vision is pretty interesting. He's very good at thwarting, and he has a lot of versatility with Intangible. So aggression is something that really likes to take out minions, and Vision synergizes with that really well. When you're Intangible, you can reduce the amount of damage from each attack by 2, meaning that you can collect all of these minions together, and then use a card like Bring It to draw a card for each minion. That's a really strong and fun strategy that you can try out with him in aggression. And between Vision and Vivian, he's very, very good at thwarting. So you're not going to be losing to the main scheme if you choose to play him in aggression. So yeah, I think that Vision is a fantastic hero to choose for solo aggression. Now on to number 8, which is going to be Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is another hero that I personally just really enjoy in aggression. I have a deck that's centered around his cutlasses because you notice that that's a weapon, and there's a lot of different weapon synergies in aggression. So if you have Mean Swing, you can exhaust a weapon and then get +3 for that attack. So that allows Kurt to exhaust the cutlasses, get +3 attack, and then you can attack for 5, which is just really, really fun. And he has a lot of power that comes in for aggression. So you can play an extremely high tempo game with Nightcrawler and aggression. And he's just so strong and good at staying alive, and he's very good at thwarting as well, to where the weaknesses of aggression you're not going to be feeling it so much when you're playing Nightcrawler because he stays alive so well and he is very good at thwarting. And then on to number 7, which is going to be Nova. And I just absolutely love playing Nova in aggression. He has the card called Unleash the Nova Force, which allows you to just go on a spree of taking out minions. So when you take out a minion with that, you get to ready up and draw a card. And that's just so powerful. And then also when you use Nova's basic powers, you get to ready the helmet. So you get another resource as well. So you can kind of start these chain reactions with minions. That's really fun. But another thing is that he's aerial, and aerial aggression is very powerful and very fun as well. So I think he's a great user of like Pitchback and the one I highlighted here, which is Dive Bomb, because he gets aerial printed onto his helmet that comes into play at the beginning of the game. So combine access to some really good aerial aggression cards and then having a bunch of readies in the kit and a bunch of economy to support that. Great hero in aggression. Now number 6 is going to be Scarlet Witch. And Scarlet Witch is a very, very interesting and cool character. And playing her in aggression can lead to some really, really high tempo and fun games. And it's also very powerful. The Scarlet Witch has her Hexbolt card you can kind of use to address any of the issues you're facing. Because that card's so versatile, it allows you to get status cards, you can thwart with it, you can deal damage with it. So then that really opens the door for letting aggression do what aggression wants to do. And I highlighted a really unique combo here in aggression because I wanted to do something that's not as straightforward for all the different heroes, so not everything's super predictable. But Chaos Magic lets you play a card from your hand ignoring its resource cost, which Hercules is a very, very strong aggression ally that doesn't often make a lot of decks because of how expensive he is. He's very good in certain scenarios, but Scarlet Witch can just take him and have a 3 attack, 4 health ally, which I think that's really fun, so I wanted to mention that here. And in 5th place, we have Jubilee, and granted, all the other heroes had 2 cards. I'm a little biased towards Jubilee, just upfront with that. I love playing Jubilee, but this combo is just so fun in aggression that I felt like I needed to mention it. But first, before I get into this combo, let's talk about why she's good in aggression. So she's really good. She's an event-based hero. They can help her trigger her sunglasses and her coat, and she has a lot of status cards as well. So she has good thwarting and status cards to give her a little bit of control, but she can get overwhelmed because she only has 9 hit points. So if there's some nasty minions that come out or something like that, and something goes wrong, you can just get taken out. So aggression shoring up that weakness by just taking out the minions can be really useful for her. But then also, there's this really, really cool combo that I absolutely love for aggression. So Grand Finale is her attack event, her 3-cost one. So it's deal 2 damage to an enemy, and for each different resource type you use to pay for this card, choose an enemy and deal 2 damage to it. So if you use 3 different resource types, you deal 2 damage, then 2 damage, then 2 damage, and then 2 damage, for 4 instances of 2 damage. So if you buff up the Grand Finale, it buffs up each instance of that damage. We have Keep Up the Pressure here, which is a side scheme that says each player may search their deck and discard pile for an attack event and add it to their hand, and then until the end of the phase, each attack event deals 1 additional damage. So that's going to turn Grand Finale into 3 damage, and then 3 damage, and then 3 damage, and then 3 damage. So you can see already there, it's 4 instances of 3 damage, and it searches your event. So that's already 12 damage, just off of that you can search. Warrior Skill is an upgrade that you can have out that says when your hero attacks, remove 1 warrior counter, and that attack deals 1 additional damage. So it's the same thing, getting it to 4, and then 4, and then 4, and then 4. That gets it up to 16 damage. And since Warrior Skill is an upgrade, and Keep Up the Pressure searches it, that's actually consistent. And then if you combine that with Aggressive Energy, this is where a little bit of luck comes in. Aggressive Energy says when you spend this card to play an attack event, that event deals 1 additional damage. So then we're up to 5 damage on each instance. So it's 5 times 4 is 20 damage. And there's 2 aggressive energies. So I'm not going to talk about the second one because that's a little inconsistent. But if you have Keep Up the Pressure out and Warrior Skill out, once you see aggressive energy, you can just finish Keep Up the Pressure and then immediately get 20 damage out of Grand Finale, which is super fun. And then that triggers your Sunglasses to deal another 3 damage. Plus you can Warrior Skill that for another 4 damage. And it's just so much damage. Okay, that's enough on Jubilee. We can go on to number 4, which is going to be Miss Marvel. Again, Miss Marvel has a similar idea, but it's built into her kit. So Miss Marvel's hero ability says after you play an attack, thwart, or defense event, you can exhaust Miss Marvel to return that event to your hand. So you can already see that she really wants to play her events. Not just her events, but the aspect events as well, because she can return the aspect events to her hand. Then Embiggen says when you play an attack event, exhaust it, increase the amount of damage that event deals by 2. So when you have events that are good targets for Embiggen, it can become very powerful. So let's say you have melee out, or you have Embiggen on the table, and you play melee. You deal 3 damage to an enemy, deal 3 damage to another enemy. You use Embiggen to increase that to 5 damage to an enemy, and then 5 damage to another enemy. And then if you want, you can exhaust that, return it to your hand. And that's just really fun, and there's a lot of very powerful event-based builds that you can do for her. So I highly recommend using attack events with Miss Marvel to great effect. Number 3 is going to be Magic. And Magic is another mystic, and Magic's whole thing is that she gets to play with the top card of her deck face up, and then you get to play that card, reducing its resource cost by 1. And the Hulk ally from the core box just synergizes so well here that I had to mention it. So Hulk is extremely powerful. He has 3 attack, 5 health on a 2-cost ally, and after he attacks, you discard the top card of your deck, and if you get a physical, you deal 2 damage to an enemy. The reason that Hulk is balanced is that you don't know what resource you're going to get. So if you get energy, you deal 1 damage to each character, including all the friendly ones. And if you get mental, you discard Hulk. And if you get wild, you do all of them. So he doesn't always stick around. In the perfect world, where you get the physical every single time, you have a 2-cost ally that's dealing 5 damage 5 times, which is 25 damage, which is absolutely crazy. And Magic, since she can see the top card of her deck, always knows when there's a physical on top of the deck, meaning that Hulk's not going to miss. And then combine that with Stepping Disc, which readies your hero, which is really good with aggression because if you bump up your attack stat, those readies can be very valuable. She also has another card that bumps up her attack in her kit. And then it also lets you choose what card you put on top of the deck, so you can just put physicals on top of your deck for Hulk. This is a fantastic build. It's really fun, especially in multiplayer. And then you can also do some other crazy stuff where you make Hulk an X-Men character, and then you put the X-Men training upgrades on him, and he just essentially becomes like having a second hero at the board. And now on to number 2, which is going to be Black Widow, which came as a surprise to me because I used my living tier list to make this video. I wasn't expecting to see Black Widow, but then it made a lot of sense because Black Widow has a big weakness of she just takes forever to actually take out the villain. But she's really good at everything else. So she has a good amount of control. She's good at dealing with minions. She has confuses in her kits. She can thwart. She has a good stat line. It's just she doesn't have that much damage. So adding cards like Full Body Charge in, where it's just here's a bunch of villain damage, I think can be really fun for Black Widow. And if you have a more expanded card pool, of course, you can lean into all of those aggression preparations, so you can still play around her preparations. But I think just having access to attack events to shore up her weakness of just kind of being a low damage hero can really help her out a lot and make her really fun to play. And now on to number 1, which is historically one of my absolute favorite heroes to play in solo aggression, and that is Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange is kind of just fits the bill here of he has amazing thwarting in his kit, but his weakness is specifically that he doesn't have low villain damage necessarily, but it can take him like a turn or 2 extra to take out the villain sometimes. And then he's weak to minions. He doesn't have all that many answers to, especially mid-health minions, to take out. So simply just adding in Relentless Assault into his deck makes a huge difference for Doctor Strange and shores up his weaknesses and is a great way of playing him. It's actually my favorite way to play Doctor Strange is in aggression. I really, really enjoy playing aggression Doctor Strange. And then also, you don't always have to just use the Invocation deck. He has very strong cards in his kit. So the Cloak of Levitation is already for Doctor Strange. So if you want to, you can buff up his attack and actually lean into Magical Enhancement, which can increase a character's stats. So you can bump up your attack stat a bunch and then use the readies. That's actually pretty strong on its own. So yeah, the Sorcerer Supreme topping my top 10 list for solo aggression heroes. Let me know what you think in the comments. I always like hearing your thoughts on this kind of stuff. And then if you enjoyed the video and want to see more stuff like this, like, comment, subscribe. Before I go, I'm going to put the top 10 heroes up on the screen for you to see.